Hi, I'm Chelsea, and I appreciate your interest in learning about human trafficking and understanding the people most impacted by this crime, the victims and survivors. In my work with Unbound, I serve trafficking survivors every day. At Unbound, in addition to our work preventing human trafficking and training our communities to respond, we provide 24/7 crisis response and relational case management services to victims and survivors. Over the years, we've seen firsthand that this crime impacts all types of people. We've served young children all the way up to survivors in their 50s. We have clients who are male, female, and transgender. Although most of our clients are U.S. citizens, we've served many survivors who are trafficked from other countries. Here's what's true of all survivors. They've faced unimaginable challenges and they've survived. Many victims are never identified because people simply don't know what to look for. Victims themselves may not understand what trafficking is, so they are unable to understand that that's what's happening to them. Fear, hopelessness, addiction, or the challenges of their lives may also keep them from reaching out for help. It's important that we know the signs to look for. Keep in mind that these signs don't necessarily mean it's human trafficking, and you may only see one or two in a trafficking victim. But when you find a constellation of these signs, or you have a gut instinct that something is wrong, it's important to take a closer look. In labor trafficking, you may notice that it seems someone is not free to come and go. Maybe they aren't in possession of their own money, ID, or documentation. They could work excessively long or unusual hours. Maybe they owe a large, unpayable, growing debt or were recruited through false promises. If you notice someone lacks access to basic needs or medical care, shows signs of violence or assault, or lacks knowledge of whereabouts, he or she could be a victim of labor trafficking. In sex trafficking, in addition to any of the signs of labor trafficking, you may notice someone is hiding bruises, scars, marks, or tattoos. Traffickers often brand their victims with tattoos as a sign of possession. Other red flags include frequent or unstable housing, involvement in the commercial sex industry, or being controlled or manipulated by another person. One survivor we've worked with in Central Texas was trafficked from the time she was 12 years old by a sophisticated trafficking ring. She still lived at home, went to church, and attended school. Because of the traffickers' threats that they'd hurt her sister if she didn't do what they say, she kept her head down, not showing any of these signs. She did well in school and tried to stay under the radar. She did try to tell an adult what was happening one time, but when they reacted negatively, this reinforced her fear, and she lived under the control of the traffickers for years. In most situations, however, there will be some key signs for child sex trafficking. Traffickers often make their victims work at night while still in school, or take them to other cities to work on the weekends. Look out for students who are skipping school, running away, or traveling a lot. Traffickers often isolate their victims from their friends and families and try to change them as much as possible to create a new identity. That makes it a lot harder for them to reach out for help. Look for people who start hanging out with a different group, start talking really differently about things like sex, partying, and drugs, or who start dressing differently. For example, if a student shows up to school with possessions you know they can't afford, or maybe a female student always has her nails and hair done, this could be a sign of grooming. If you see someone start dating or spending time with someone who is much older, that could be a sign. Or if someone is being controlled or manipulated by another person and isn't allowed to make their own choices or go where they want. If someone starts talking about unusual sexual experiences or selling sex acts, that's a red flag. Traffickers and buyers are often really violent with their victims. If you notice someone hiding bruises, cuts, or scars, that's a red flag. A pimp may force his victim to get a tattoo to show that he or she is the pimp's possession, like the pimp's name, a money bag, barcode, or something else that indicated a trafficking situation. If a young person is acting out sexually, exhibiting aggressive anger, or doing the opposite, appearing withdrawn or reclusive, this could be a sign of exploitation, especially if this is different from their normal behavior. A person who is using drugs or involved in a gang is also more likely to be vulnerable for sex trafficking. Remember, a person who is being trafficked may not show any of these signs at all, doing their best to keep their head down or not draw attention for fear of the trafficker. But if you feel like something is wrong, take a minute to check in and ask. Before we talk about the barriers to identification and pathway to recovery, let's watch this brief video. In it, you'll see a community member noticing red flags that make her suspicious that a child's mother may be trafficking her.
Hey, I think I'm lost.
Do you know where you are?
I'm in this cul-de-sac.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know my house is kind of hard to find. The main road and
Hey, can I call you back?
Kayla, in the house. Come on now. We don't got all day.
I'm so glad that community members are keeping their eyes open and taking action. In a case like this one, law enforcement could investigate, call Unbound or another service provider in your community, and we could help this girl get to safety and start her healing journey. Unfortunately, victims often go unnoticed and don't seek help for themselves, and there are a number of reasons why. In labor trafficking, it's a little more straightforward. Victims are often kept extremely isolated, and their exploiters keep them from seeking help through threats and violence. Many may not have legal documentation, and the fear of deportation keeps them from seeking help. For sex trafficking victims, the reasons may be even more complex. Many victims may fear not being believed, may feel shame about what happened to them, or fear retaliation from their trafficker. They may also think they themselves will be in trouble with the law and want to avoid criminal charges. They may believe that the exploitation they're experiencing isn't as bad as what could face them if they sought help. Or they may fear getting a family member in trouble. They may also be facing threats or blackmail from their trafficker. Because of the abuse and lifestyle that often comes with trafficking, they may be confused or disoriented, or have developed a substance dependency, which the trafficker will use to control the victim. The most complicated barrier to identification and recovery is what's called trauma bonding. Trauma bonding happens when an abuser uses a combination of fear and abuse with romantic attraction and affection to create a strong emotional bond in his victim. This is often seen in victims of domestic violence as well, and has a strong neurological impact on victims. It is not uncommon to hear in victims the sentiment, "I hate what he does to me, but I love him and cannot leave him." In many ways, this psychological bondage can be more powerful than a physical constraint. But here's the good news. There is hope. As our communities are becoming more aware and equipped to respond, more and more survivors are both reaching out for help and being identified and recovered than ever before. An educated community creates a better environment for outcries and identification. Every survivor has the potential to heal and build a life of freedom. In fact, many survivors also want to give back by becoming survivor leaders, helping shape the response to human trafficking, hosting support groups, and sharing their stories. The path to restoration, however, can be a long and difficult process. After recovery, the first step is to assess the needs of a survivor and work with them to create a recovery strategy for their unique needs. Some have a safe and supportive home environment to return to, and some do not. Recovery is a process that takes time, patience, and hope. When trafficking survivors courageously choose to work through the trauma of their experiences, they find healing. They rediscover their own dreams, goals, and strengths. They rediscover themselves. By educating yourself and others about the realities of human trafficking, you could be part of saving a life. Take a minute to add the National Human Trafficking Hotline to your phone so you're ready to make a report if needed. It's 1-888-373-7888, or you can text the word HELP to 233-733. Then head to unboundnow.org to learn how you can be involved and support the work of Unbound.